Alright, so today we are going to be talking about pilots. I think as far as the topic of pilot itself, I think this is definitely something I have not really dove into as much as I should have been. I've talked about in numerous videos about units, but pilot is definitely something that I have kind of neglected the most. Pilot are a vital piece of the puzzle that makes the overall team composition really cohesive because pilot wise they do provide a lot of utility skill wise stat wise that will further help whatever the unit is doing, which I have not really done so much about. So for the topic of this video, we'll be talking about how to find the right pilot for the units that you're using, because let's be honest, because most people when summoning they tend to go for the unit first. By the time they have drained all their diamonds, they pull their unit, they often ask themselves like, whoa, what pilot do I use for the unit that I just pulled? Like I didn't get the designated, like the corresponding pilot that goes with it. So what do I do now? So we're gonna get into it in this video. That's gonna be the topic of this video, obviously. So let's talk about that right now. All right, so let's actually learn a little bit more about the pilot and what they actually do. First up, we have the basic parameters like your combat power, range sense, melee sense, reaction, and then resistance. They pretty much give you a basic idea of actually how they works. So for Camille specifically, he will be a more range-oriented pilot rather than a melee-oriented pilot. And next thing you should know, the higher these numbers are, the better they will perform in their specific elements. So for range sense, the higher that number is the better it will be performing range, attacks, for example. Same thing goes to melee. The reaction is related to the evasion and the guarding, so the higher that number is, the better chance that will get proctored. And resistance is pretty simple. This one is simply the ability to kind of resist incoming damage and dealing, right? So we have that. Going down to the skill 1 and skill 2, they are pretty easy to understand as well as how they works. So skill 1 is generally ties into the unit specific element right there. So for Camille, he will work best with units that are yellow element, and the second line usually goes towards whatever category the unit the pilot will work best for the specific unit. So for Camille, he will work best under a yellow type element that has a generic typing. So we have that. Skill 2 usually goes into the unit specific vortex, or they call it unit category. So these are some that you can find once you scroll down below on the unit. So for this character itself, he will be able to boost for specific vortex or category, however you want to call it. So that's actually pretty good. Alright, so after we know a little bit more about the pilot, so we can actually go in to see how to actually pick the right pilot for these specific units. I had listed out 5 different categories of unit which we can go over. So starting out with a sniper unit. So from a sniper unit, you preferably want a pilot that is able to offer good amount range sense. So if you are picking a pilot, if you don't know what pilot to go for, an easy step that I usually do myself is to filter through the list. We will probably pick something that is based on the highest range, and what I'll do next is actually just gonna go down the list. First of all, I'm gonna check if the skill 1 has things that are like for purple, for sniper unit, and for skill 2 I'm gonna see if they are things gonna fit the vortex or the unit tags for the unit. Since S Gundam is a purple and it's a sniper, some of the other unit categories is One Year War, Mass Reduce, Saku type, support unit, old model, and then Xeon Force affiliated. So those are things that I'm always constantly keeping in the back of my mind as far as when I'm picking a pilot for this unit. Obviously, patch is not going to fit the budget. This is good. This is more universally based, so that does not matter. But skill 2 is for generic units, so this one is not going to be a good option. Would Camille works? Camille does not yellow generic. That does not work. New Time Machine, Gatsby War, or the Gatsby War, transforming unit, and then AUK affiliated. That's not gonna work either. So we're gonna move down the list. That's what I personally do if you do not have a designated pilot for your units. For example, like for Zeta, I already do have Zeta pairing up with Camille because they are the designated pilot and unit for each other. But yeah, that's pretty much the process I will go with. And when we go over to a raid unit, a raid unit generally speaking, or majority of the time, they are more melee oriented. So if you guys do see for this unit specifically, the ranged weapon having a D power, beam saber B plus power, and then the strong attack beam saber A minus. So this is a clear indication when you guys are picking a pilot. What you're gonna do again, we will go to the character selection, filter by melee, and then same process again. We will start from top to bottom with my highest quote unquote melee stats, and then or the melee sense, and then move from there. Purple not gonna work. Protagonist not gonna work, and then this will work, but this one unfortunately is gonna be boosting range sense, which is not something I really need, so we're gonna skip past that and then move on to Ko. Does Ko actually works? No, because it's a blue element, and then the lost conflicts, and then ground or the tag, so that is not going to fit as well. So same process of elimination. We're going to start from the bottom, check off or checklist to see if they fit our needs for the unit. If it does not, keep going until we find one that fits. Obviously I do have the designated pilots, so we will equip that, but if you don't, this is what you would do. And for snipe or the bombardment, pretty much the same deal. For bombardment, you guys can see that the beam smarkin and the back beam cannon are the one that are more the targeted one. So range weapon is going to be the ideal setup. Range sense. I did actually unit enhance my Gundam, so obviously it will be a little bit more skewed. But for bombardment, sniper, they're both the same. They want unit that, or they want pilot that boosts their range sense. So that's that. And for generic, so generic unit, they don't necessarily have a specific role. They're just kind of there. You can swing either way, melee or range, it does not matter. But the trick I'm gonna tell you guys is read between the fine lines. Sometimes you guys can see that, for example, the Break Z on the Transcendent skill, it actually boosts the third weapon beam damage by 30%. So only the third weapon is able to take advantage of that. So if we do take a look at the other weaponries, beam saber is not taking advantage of that. Beam rifle, this one is not. So this one is going to be stronger. So this is going to be giving us like a green flag to go a little bit more range sense rather than the melee sense, if that kind of makes sense. But that's generically how it goes. For example, Zeta is a generic, and it pretty much does the same thing. There isn't necessarily anywhere within the description that says you want to go more range or you want to go more melee. Even the Transcendent skill is pretty basic in a sense that you can go either way. This one boosts beam damage, but it's not specified to what. But I think there is a clear indication once we get down to the weapon. The strong beam saber is obviously good, or the strong beam rifle is actually going to be doing more. So this one is actually less. So if we don't have this one, which you would probably never not have it, but this is just a clear indication of what this unit wants to do. It wants to kind of focus on a little bit more on the range aspects. So hopefully this does give you guys a clear idea for the generic. Is you can go either way. There definitely no right or wrong answer. We can go in for another example. For example, Hamahama. It's a generic, so we need to examine what the unit does. I don't really have too much on the Transcendent skill, so we don't really need to take a look at that. Even if skill 1 and skill 2 does not specify which area is going to be stronger, but it's going to be a lot more apparent in this one. This one is actually, for my take, I went with more like a range kind of build for this one, even though the beam saber is, having a higher power, right? But when I have this one, I do have the designated pilot, and I believe the designated pilot actually goes a little bit more for the for the range for whatever reason. But this one is a clear example that where's it at? Yeah, this one is a clear example. You can actually go with like range, or you can go with a close combat option if you want, because of the power scaling on that one. And last but not least, tanks. Armor unit or tanks, however you want to call them, they are pretty much the same principle as a generic unit. They don't necessarily have a specific guideline or parameter of what you want to build them for. Even the power scaling on the weaponry does not even though this one does have it, so you may or may not want to go over a little bit more of a range. But same as generic, you want to read between the font lines to see what they do, and that's pretty much about it. If you don't have the designated palette, that is what you would do. That's how you would find your right palette. But other than that, that's gonna be pretty much it. So I think right now for global, since we really don't have a lot of options yet, because it's still pretty new, as we do get more options, you might pull units and not pull the palette, but you guys will definitely do have, hopefully you guys have some good options as far as palette to fill in those slots. But other than that, that's pretty much what I have for you guys as far as this video, and I'll be catching you guys on the next one.